like the sound check?
I'm sorry,
Would you like the sound check, Lindsay?
to do a sound check? you
Would
said?
you like to? Yeah, I know you were looking for Cindy.
Cindy and Kimberly, yes.
and Lindsay is here too, but she's muted.
Right, she's just gonna be observing.
Oh, okay. So yeah, they're there.
Okay. Cindy and Kimberly, can you hear us? I just want to do a sound check to make sure that we can hear you. Perhaps. So this session will be starting in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, but
You can't hear us. So Cindy, I just saw your message. I'm curious if you can put on, is your video working out of curiosity? We just saw your note in the chat. Do you think they should go in and out again?
let's see. Camera. Okay, so that's a problem on our side.
Okay, but it doesn't, Kimberly, how's your audio?
Oh, you can?
Maybe on Kim's computer. Kimberly, can
Can
you just do a sound check? Kim can't hear anything.
Wait, here we go.
Kim can't hear us.
Yes.
Kim should be able to. Kimberly needs to she needs to switch her input.
Kimberly, I'm being told that you need to switch your input. And I see that Cindy is going back in again.
Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Cindy, are you still trying to present?
Here, we can share screen.
Oh, who just spoke?
Kim, I'm on Cindy's.
Oh,
Okay,
It's
so
working.
we can hear you now.
Perfect.
So you're both going to be speaking through Kim's computer?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you both.
Good. Okay.
Okay, I'm
All
gonna.
right. All right. I think we're all set. We
I
still
don't
have
know
a few.
why it was doing that, but
Who knows?
yeah.
Who knows? So this is scheduled, and do you want to just make sure that, I assume you're going to be showing a PowerPoint, is that correct?
Correct.
Do you want to see if you can, I've hit share screen so that you can all share. Do you want to see if you can, so I can certainly see it. It looks like it's
Yeah, there it is. Whoops.
perfect. Okay. And I assume you can scroll through in that. All right.
Correct.
Here, let me try it. Yep, we're good. I'm muting myself.
So we have.
Okay.
So we have a few more minutes before this session starts. As you can see, Cindy Berger and Kimberly Kuehl are in Springfield for this presentation. Ladies, I assume that you'll also start taking questions at some point, if that's possible. Yes?
Do you want when we start?
Yeah, no, I can. I can do that.
You'll be glad to take questions? Okay, well, we'll obviously first have you go through your presentation, but just in case. And then we'll have, what I'm going to ask folks is, I'll have to, because this session is getting recorded on Zoom, is either you can come up here and ask a question on the microphone, or I can just simply repeat your question. All right? So we just have we still have about 5 more minutes before we start, but I'm glad we're all in here. Thanks, ladies.
Sounds good.
And I assume the sound check sounds okay. Perfect. All right, people who are coming to the front, yay. No voy a morder, prometo.
Josie, do you see me in the list? I don't see me in the list, but
Louisa, I see you listed as Lindsay Ennett.
oh. Okay,
Details, but you're not presenting, right, Louisa?
well, you never can tell.
You're right, you're right. Well,
I
I'll
don't know
make
how
sure
to
to,
change that.
right. I can try to change it for you if you want, Louisa.
Well, yeah, because I don't know what if Lindsay shows up and there'll be two of us.
You're right. I'm also going to mute you, Louisa, too. All right. Don't take it
Okay.
personally.
No, as long as I know I'm there.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Details.
Josie emailed with Lynn and she's still in the hospital. She's hoping to be released, but
Oh, that's good to know.
doing all
So-
kinds of tests.
So Louisa, everyone is hearing you in the wait here in the room. Just so you
Okay, okay, then I'll mute myself.
know. I hope everybody has lots of questions for Cindy Berger and Kimberly Kuehl. I'm sure they're delighted that I just said that.
Could you hear me say no? You heard it. It was telepathically, right?
And know that I'm going to be recording this, ladies, okay?
Yep.
So we'll be uploading this to the conference website as an additional session that people can access. There's plenty of room in the front. Good, 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 good,
I'm
good.
Christine.
Hi, Christine, how you doing?
Good. We've been talking.
Yes, 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 yes. So I'm going to be facilitating, just being the Zoom master here on this one. So we can catch up
Sure.
because you're presenting tomorrow, right?
I
Yes.
tried just now.
Oh, you just did? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Just tried. Really good.
Right, right. Good, good. I think there's a lot intense interest in that topic. Well, that's a good problem, right?
That's true.
So, I got stuck trying to get in this morning. I was able to park in the front, but it still took me, I was literally in front of the hotel for about 7 to 10 minutes, just trying to turn left. So. All right, I'm going to start. So just to give everybody fair warning, including our presenters, we're going to be recording the session. My name is Josie Yanguas. I am just simply the Zoom master here and controlling the board here. But our presenters are going to be Cindy Berger and Kim Kuehl. So I am going to start recording. Or maybe, there we go. No. So it's recording. So good afternoon, everybody. This is a presentation on educator licensure requirements and new hiring flexibilities being presented by Cindy Berger and Kimberly Kuehl, who are in educator effectiveness at the State Board of Education. So we're going to be first having Cindy and Kim run through their presentation, and then hopefully there'll be an opportunity for questions and answers. And as I said at the beginning, because we're recording this, either you can come and use the mic in the middle of the room, or if you say it from your chairs, I'll repeat it again so that we can hear it as part of the Zoom recording. All right. So ladies, take it away.
Good afternoon. As she said, I'm Cindy Berger from the State Board of Education, and Kim and I both work in licensure with all of these areas. So if you do have questions, feel free to type them in the chat as well. She is saving a document with the chat questions, and she plans, if we run out of time or there's questions we don't have answers to, she will complete that document, and we will send it to everyone.
Cindy, I just wrote down, I can't type that fast. So so we'll just rely on verbal questions. How's that?
Okay, sure. All right, let me see. First on the agenda, we are going to talk about some legislative changes that have taken place that will give everyone some greater hiring flexibility. We'll talk about the types of licenses there are, application procedures, and additional information to address the shortages, and then the closing. So I'm trying to move that out of my way. Okay. First, the legislative and rule changes. Effective July of 2017, we changed all the ESL and bilingual endorsements to the pre-K to 12th grade range. There's no longer any more middle grade ranges. There's no more reason for everybody to have this separate grade bands. It's all one. And what we are calling pre-K is any instruction that occurs prior to kindergarten is considered pre-K. And effective this year on July 12th, the ENL endorsement has been removed from rules and is no longer an open option for new applications. We have added the ENL test back into testing, as there are educators who have previously applied for the ENL endorsement, and that was their deficiency. They didn't have the test. So that will be in there for an amount of time. And I don't know that we have a specific sunset date on that, but the test will be available for a time for educators who want to have the ENL endorsement to be able to complete the testing. Also on the same date in July, we began to accept only the Illinois State Seal of Biliteracy or the Global Seal of Biliteracy in lieu of the testing for world language, bilingual endorsements, TBE. We are no longer honoring other state seals of biliteracy. And this would also apply to the initial Pell for world language and bilingual endorsements. Educators can waive the TLP test with the transitional bilingual with the seal of biliteracy, and they do not have to take either the target language proficiency exam or the world language exam if they hold that. Okay, this next part, we're going to talk about the types of licenses that are available. We're going to talk about the renewable and the permanent credentials. Some of the ones that we will be discussing are ESL, English as a second language, bilingual education, and that would be a language specific endorsement. English as a new language, ENL, or the English as a new language bilingual, language specific. Substitute licenses, educator license with stipulations, the paraprofessional, and special ed approvals for ESL and bilingual. The temporary credentials are some of the approvals, the short-term, let's see, the short-term sub, the educator license with stipulations, transitional bilingual, and then the educator license with stipulations, VIT, which is the visiting international educator. Okay, when we discuss or when we're talking about ESL endorsements or English as a second language, in this arena, the educators do not need to have proof of a second language proficiency. The course being taught is an intensive English instruction that's used, and students come from a variety of linguistic backgrounds. They're all being taught English. To be assigned to an ESL setting in pre-K to 6th grade, the educator would need to hold a PEL, a professional educator license, with an ESL or English as a new language endorsement. They would also need a PEL with a bilingual education or an ENL endorsement, language specific. Or an educator license with stipulations, transitional bilingual, or the TBE. To be assigned the same pre-K to 6, continued, we also would accept, they could use an English, educator license with stipulations for the visiting international educator, or if they had been in an approved bilingual education program prior to September 1st, 1985, and a PEL. For educators that want to be in an ESL setting for grades 7 through 12, one of the following is required. They would need a PEL with an ESL or an ENL endorsement, or an educator license with stipulations, visiting international. All of that information, as far as assignability goes, can be found in the Illinois Administrative Code 1.780. Not that it's terribly exciting reading, but that's where that information is found. Okay. The requirements for an excuse me, an ESL endorsement would be 18 semester hours of coursework with a very specific distribution, which includes a linguistics course, theoretical foundations of teaching ESL, assessment of the bilingual student, methods and materials for teaching ESL, cross-cultural studies for teaching limited proficient English students, and an elective to total 18 hours. A lot of universities throughout the state have a program where they teach specifically that, and it is for the required courses for the endorsement. So I think we have those listed on our website as well. There is also a minimum of 100 clock hours that the educator needs to complete, or 3 months teaching experience in an ESL setting. Bilingual education teachers. Illinois school districts are required to provide bilingual instruction if a school has 20 children fluent in the same language who do not speak English. Bilingual classrooms must include ESL, the intense English instruction, for at least part of the day. The goal is for the children to move out of a bilingual setting into an English speaking classroom within 3 years' time. We offer target language proficiency exams in 39 different languages, as well as an English proficiency exam. And that continues to grow every year with the different languages that we start offering. The bilingual education teacher would need to hold a Pell with the bilingual education endorsement, or an ELS TBE, which is the educator license with stipulations, transitional bilingual endorsement, the ELS VIT, the visiting international educator, or again, if they were employed in a approved bilingual program prior to September 1st, 1985. Preschool bilingual education teachers. This became effective in July 2016. Any individual assigned to provide instruction to preschool students must meet the requirement for bilingual education or English as a second language education. Bilingual education teacher. And this is per administrative code again, 171720. No individual may be assigned to teach in a departmentalized 6th through 8th grade unless he or she holds a Pell, professional educator license, and the middle grade endorsement applicable to the content area. In this instance, it would not be a middle grade endorsement. It would be the pre-K to 12. But in order to teach in that grade range, you have to have your content area within the 6th to 8th grade setting. Beginning in 2004, teachers may not be, no teacher may be assigned to teach a particular content area in any grades 9 through 12 unless they hold a Pell in that teaching area for the applicable endorsement for the assignment, like math 9 through 12, English language arts 9 through 12, etc. And it gets into some of the career and technical education as well. And they have to also have completed some work experience required. Requirements for bilingual education teachers are similar to the requirements for the ESL educator. It also requires 18 semester hours of coursework with a similar distribution. They need to complete a foundations of bilingual ed assessment of the bilingual student. They need a methods and materials for teaching limited proficient students in bilingual programs, the cross-cultural studies, and a methods and materials for ESL, which is different than the methods of and materials for bilingual programs. So it's 2 different courses, along and as well as an elective. They also need the 100 hours or 3 months teaching experience in a bilingual setting, and they need to complete the TLP test, or if they are a student with foreign credentials, if their transcript comes, or if they went to school in a country where the language that they're wanting to teach in bilingual education was the same as the language taught at their college, then they would not be required to take the TLP. Again, those can also be waived with the Illinois State Seal of Biliteracy or the Global Seal of Biliteracy. Just some quick information about the target language proficiency exams. They take approximately 3 hours and 45 minutes. They're computer based. There are 4 constructed response assignments within the exam. They are $122 per test. They also include study reference materials, and a passing score would be a 240 or higher. And you can find more information on the Illinois testing website, which we gave a link to. This is a list of all the different target languages that we offer. And as I said, we add to them probably yearly. whenever a large population of a new language, arrives in Illinois, then we look to our testing company to come up with target language proficiency tests to add to the list. ENL and English as a new language with the bilingual. As we said earlier, they have been removed from rules and from the application website. So we will not be receiving any new applications for those. Currently, what we have been doing in particular, if some had slipped through, we have been changing those to the ESL endorsement. Why we're going over that material, I don't know. The English as a new language endorsement, they need 18 semester hours of coursework in English as a new language coursework in the passage of the ENL test. So if there's anybody out there still lingering with deficiencies, that's what the requirements are. Okay, substitute licenses. In order to be a substitute, educators are required to hold a bachelor's degree or higher. They are valid for 5 years and they are renewable. And it is valid for teaching in all grades of public schools from pre-K up through grade 12. The educator license with stipulations for a paraprofessional. These are the sub, and this one, the paraprofessional, are some of the permanent licenses. The requirements for a paraprofessional is an associate's degree or higher, or 60 hours of 60 semester hours of coursework from a college, or a high school diploma or GED, and a score of 460 or higher on the ETS Parapro exam, or a high school diploma or GED, and a score of a 4 on applied math on the ACT work keys, and a score of a 4 on the reading and workplace documents. This license is valid for 5 fiscal years and is renewable. With this license, the educator would need to work under the direct supervision of a licensed teacher. Okay, these are a little bit different from the other English as a second language and bilingual education endorsements that we have discussed. These are the special ed approvals with this one is English as a second language. There are varying ways that you can become licensed with this. There are, I think, 4 options, maybe just 3. The first one is if you hold a PEL, professional educator license with a special education teaching field, or if you have a license with a special ed approval. This is one way you can get the ESL special education. If you complete foundations of ESL, the ESL methods course, and the bilingual assessment course, the ESL special ed approval can be added to your license. Right. The special ed, the ESL special education approval is valid for teaching in the same grade range as your initial first endorsement on your teaching license. So for instance, if you have elementary, which currently is 1 to 6, you would be able to teach ESL within that grade range. Okay, the second way that you could receive the approval is if you hold a license that's endorsed in English as a second language. Then you would need to complete coursework for the Learning Behavior Specialist Characteristics course, the LBS-1 Methods course, and the LBS-1 Psychological Diagnosis for Exceptional Children. Option 3 is if you have a school support personnel professional educator license, with the exception of school nurse. So you can't for the school nurse, but for all other school support personnel, if you complete the bilingual assessment course, you can have the English as a second language special ed approval can be added to your license. And that approval would prepare the school support personnel to work with students for whom English is not their first language. School support personnel would not be able to go out and teach English as a second language. It just helps prepare them for the students that they would be working with. Now, the bilingual special education approval. There are a couple of different ways that you can receive this approval. Again, first option would be to hold a special education Pell or a special education approval on a Pell. Those were the old approvals we gave prior to switching to licensure, but a lot of those are still in play and they're valid for the life of the license. So there isn't a way now to get a special education approval, but that's for, in the instance that someone has the old approval still on their license. The educator would need to complete the language proficiency assessment in the specific target language. They would need the foundations of bilingual and ESL. They would need a bilingual methods course, and they would need to complete the assessment of the bilingual student. Option 2, the educator would need to hold a Pell endorsed in early childhood, elementary, secondary, or special K-12, and an ESL or bilingual approval. They would need to complete coursework then addressing the characteristics of the exceptional child, addressing the cross-categorical special education methods, and complete the psychological diagnosis or educational assessment of students with disabilities who have the limited English proficiency or just a psychological diagnosis for students with all types of disabilities. Option 3, if the educator held or holds a transitional bilingual educator license with stipulations and have 2 years of successful teaching experience, if they complete coursework addressing characteristics of the exceptional child, cross-categorical special education methods, and a survey of the exceptional child with the foundations of bilingual and ESL, and the course of assessment of the bilingual student, they would be able to receive the bilingual special ed approval. And option 4, if the educator holds a Pell in school support personnel, this would be for the school counselor, school social worker, school psychologist, or the speech language pathologist. If they have completed a target language proficiency exam or the English language proficiency exam and completed the assessment of the bilingual student course, they would be able to receive the bilingual special ed approval. And again, this is similar to the ESL special ed approval for school support personnel. This would prepare the school support personnel to conduct assessment of bilingual students. This would not be an option for them to teach bilingual special ed students. And now we're going to get into more of the temporary credentials that are available. A lot of these are fairly new. And it is in part to assist with teacher shortages in specific areas. There are short-term approvals for teachers at all grade levels. The requirements for this would be the educator would have to hold a Pell, a professional educator license. If they have completed 9 semester hours of coursework in the specific subject to be taught, For instance, someone wants to teach high school math, but they don't have enough to get the endorsement. They can apply for this um, short-term approval with 9 semester hours of math and the content test, the math test, and they would be able to teach on that for 3 fiscal years. It is not a renewable. You can't apply for it again. The thought is that during that period of time that the educator would be working towards the full requirements for the endorsement. But we have issued a lot of these. There are a lot of educators that have been able to use these to teach in areas they maybe would not have been able to. Another one that we have had a lot of people apply for is the short-term approval for the paraprofessional. This requires a high school diploma only, or its equivalent, GED. Validity period is 3 years, and it again is not renewable. The educator would need to work under the direct supervision of a licensed teacher. And what our hope is that while they're working on this approval, they'd be working towards the requirements for their full license as a paraprofessional, which would be the testing they would need to complete. The short-term substitute teaching requirements are an associate's degree or higher from a regionally accredited institution, or they need to show that they have completed 60 semester hours of coursework. This would allow the educator to work on this license until June 30th of 2023. It is not renewable. We won't be offering it again, as far as I know. So it's a short time, limited kind of approval. It will be valid for substituting in all grades of public schools, pre-K to 12. And again, as with any substitute license, you cannot teach more than 5 consecutive days per licensed teacher unless the state has declared a disaster proclamation in which the short-term substitute may serve up to 15 consecutive days for the licensed teacher. Okay, the transitional bilingual. This is the educator license with stipulations, transitional bilingual educator license. The requirements for this are that it is language specific. The educator would need to hold a bachelor's degree or higher from the United States or a degree from a foreign country that we determine is the equivalent of a bachelor's degree. The educator would need to be proficient in both English and the target language they're wanting to work in. The medium of instruction at the university where the educator earned their degree will determine what testing is required. And again, that may be waived by the Illinois Seal of Biliteracy or the Global Seal of Biliteracy. An educator that holds an educator license with stipulations, transitional bilingual or the TBE, they can also add to that license with a bilingual special ed approval, which we just talked about, or the English as a second language special education approval. They can also apply for a short-term emergency approval in special ed, which could be the blind and visually impaired, the deaf and hard of hearing, or the learning behavior specialist 1. They can also apply for the learning behavior specialist 1 endorsement if they have completed all the coursework and testing. And they can apply for a foreign language endorsement. They would have to meet the requirements for that endorsement as you know, as they would for a Pell, be 18 semester hours of coursework and the foreign language exam or the biliteracy seal. One thing on the transitional bilingual, the endorsements or approvals that are added to the TBE will only be valid for the life of the TBE. So up to 5 years. And then after that, they don't, you cannot teach on them any longer. Visiting international teachers, which most of these, they come through agencies. They've already been recruited to work in Illinois by different areas. So this is not something someone can just, log on to Ellis and apply for. The requirements include the equivalent of a bachelor's degree. They have to have been prepared as a teacher at the grade level that they will be employed for in Illinois. They have to have adequate content knowledge of the subject matter they will be teaching. They have to have adequate command of the English language. They would receive once they meet the requirements, receive the following endorsements. They would get a content area endorsement, which was the major field of study. For instance, if they were an elementary teacher, they would get the elementary education. If they were a high school science teacher, they would get, their field of science. And then along with their content area, they would get a foreign language, a bilingual education, and an English as a second language endorsement. Illinois schools conduct formal recruitment for teachers educated abroad. We work with specific schools that we have, or specific countries that we have a memo of understanding with. The license and endorsements are valid for 5 years and may not be renewed. And the educators would need to take an English language assessment in their home country before coming to the States. That's a requirement for them to come. Application procedures for educators. We, as I'm sure many of you know, we have a new not necessarily new, but the computer system that we use is Ellis. Educators would need to sign up for the Educator License Information System. We have a link on our website. Once they have an account set up, they would have to, this is for the VITs actually, they would have to obtain their foreign credentials and have them evaluated by one of our approved agencies. We request that they have a course by course evaluation of all transcripts and credentials. We do offer reciprocity for educators, not necessarily the visiting international, but just educators in general. If they have a valid and comparable out-of-state license and a bachelor's degree, they will receive reciprocity for whatever areas they may have comparable to the ones in the state of Illinois. We can also use reciprocity for subsequent endorsements, which would include bilingual education and ESL if they receive that after they have their professional educator license in Illinois and they are out of state and they receive the ESL or the bilingual there in the new or the other state. They can submit them to us and apply to have them added to their license. Okay, some of the approaches that other districts are taking to address some of the shortages. We have Northern Illinois is working with the Elgin School District, and they've formed a partnership to help paraprofessionals obtain their teaching license through an accelerated program. Another one is Danville and Springfield schools districts have implemented a grow your own program with local universities, which include scholarships to pay current staff to become teachers. Universities with alternative licensure programs in place, candidates, teachers of record, in partnering districts so that they can complete their licensure program. And we encourage everyone to speak with local colleges and universities in your area that offer teacher prep programs to explore the innovative opportunities that are available to address the shortages. And that looks like about it as far as this portion. Kim is going to address the questions, if anybody has any questions right now.
Okay, thank you. And what I'm going to suggest is if you could ask your question at the microphone that's in the center, so that, yes, this gentleman and the gentleman in the blue. So I assume the microphone should be on. You might have to turn it on.
You hear me? Yeah, okay. So we have some paraprofessionals that have taken coursework to get their teaching certificate, but then they are stumbling when it comes to the English assessment that goes along with it. But if we needed them for only like the Spanish side of the dual language program, why can't that be enough? I guess is my question.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear very well. What was can you repeat the question, please? I'm so sorry.
Sure, yeah. So we have some paraprofessionals that have gone through the teaching courses, but the only stumbling block that they run into is passing the English test. But if we need them for like a two-way dual language program to teach just the Spanish portion of the day, why can't that be enough?
I believe that's in statute, but I'm going to have to look that up specifically to what it says. Because I think that that is something that is bound by statute that we don't have control of. So will take your question back. I'm going to do some research on that, and then I'll provide that in the FAQ document.
So my question is related to the seal of biliteracy in lieu of world language world language content area testing. And so a student who earns the seal as a senior in high school can, if they want to become a Spanish or French or whatever teacher, they don't have to take a content area test. Is that correct?
We're having a really hard time hearing everybody.
Could you hear the question or?
I was having trouble. I don't know if it's the microphone.
Oh, here.
I can hear you just fine, but the microphone, it's not coming through on our
Can you
end.
hear me right now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll say it again. So a senior in high school takes, earns the seal of biliteracy. They want to be a Spanish or French or Arabic teacher. They complete the coursework at university. They do or do not. That seal of biliteracy then replaces the content area test, correct?
Not only can't hear you, but a lot of it's cutting out.
So I believe the question is, and I'll repeat it again, if a student receives the seal of biliteracy, and then they go on to college, does it replace the content area test?
If it's the state seal of biliteracy for Illinois, is what you're saying?
Yes.
That is in place to waive the target language proficiency test if they're applying for the endorsement on their license. Yes.
So it replaces the language proficiency test, not
Just
the,
not the full requirements. They still have to
Right,
complete the
no.
coursework
No.
with the
Yes.
distribution.
go, and I'll repeat the question again here.
So regarding the four language endorsement piece on a transitional temporary certification. If they did apply for the first time, and they put the TP, put the whatever it's called, ELS or whatever, the temporary thing lapsed, can they apply for another temporary just for language?
So it sounds like the question is, if I have a provisional license or the provisional license with stipulations and my 5 years has elapsed, as say a bilingual provisional, could I then apply for a provisional, say, as a foreign language credential?
We do not have a provisional for foreign language. The only provisional that we offer is the transitional bilingual. And once it's been issued and the 5 years has passed, it is non-renewable. You can't get it again. There's nothing else you can do other than to meet the full requirements of the professional educator license. The only provisional that I would say that we have out there now, and it's not even us, is maybe some of the Illinois approved programs that have alternative programs. I don't know if there's specific programs though for like ESL bilingual for those alternative programs, but they do have the ability to issue provisional licenses through their alternative programs. I think their programs are mainly like in elementary and things like that, but I haven't seen one for ESL or bilingual, but certainly that would be the only provisional other than the TBE. And then of course, BIT, that's only for visiting international anyway. So yeah, unfortunately we used to have a provisional that was 2 years. And then we even had one for a year many years ago, but with recent legislation, we have done away with the provisionals, unfortunately.
So it'd be easier if you actually come up here and ask the question, if you don't mind. Since your questions are getting more and more complex,
All right,
right?
okay, that's fine. So my
So here,
question,
so
oh,
just-
it's still going, okay.
Speak right here.
So my question is, because on the, one of your slides, maybe in the 2/3 of the way down, when you were talking about the temporary certification, their temporary license, whatever we call it, you had a final bullet related to foreign language endorsement. Temporary, that's what I'm talking about.
So we do have so for existing teachers that have a professional educator license, they would be able to get an approval for 3 fiscal years with having 9 hours or the test. If you were talking about the transitional bilingual, once that's, you get a foreign language endorsement that way with just the test, but if the TBE is expired, that's, it goes with the validity of the TBE. So the only other approval that I can think of that we offer now, I'm not sure if we actually included this in the slide, is we do have one for educators that don't hold a Pell. So this would be in this case, if this person's TBE ran out and they have nothing, they don't have a Pell, and they still want to teach in that setting, we do have a short-term approval for content knowledge pathway, and those are for educators that do not hold a professional educator license, but they are working towards a program. So there has to be a district that's ready to hire them. They have to provide proof that they are enrolling or will intend to roll into an approved program for that specific area. And then they have to have the content area test. There's a couple other requirements there, but that would be the only approvals that we would offer short-term, I guess you can say provisional, so to speak. It's like sort of like a provisional license in the meantime. That is the only thing we have available at this time.
Hi, I have a question. And for the room, I'm standing, I'm not sitting. This is how short I am. I have a question. If you're a special education teacher and you want to pick up the ESL endorsement, is there any advantage or disadvantage to that option one of only taking 9 hours for the ESL endorsement compared to the 18 hours for the regular ESL endorsement?
The approval versus endorsement.
Yeah, I mean, the advantage is you get in the classroom quicker. So if you're a professional educator license holder with an LBS 1 endorsement, and now you want to teach ESL, if you have 9 semester hours of ESL coursework, I would highly encourage to apply for that approval, especially if you don't have, obviously the rest of the 18 hours for the permanent endorsement, or you haven't completed those clinical hours or those 3 months yet of teaching experience. We highly encourage you to apply for those approvals.
What's the difference between an endorsement and an approval when it comes to being the teacher of record to the state?
Time, you only have it for 3 years versus 5 years.
Oh, this is 3 years. That's a
Yeah.
huge-
So you have it for 3 years, and then essentially once it runs out, you're no longer qualified. So you want to make sure that when you have that approval, you're working towards the permanent endorsement. So that way there's no gap, in qualification or certification.
Okay, and I'm going to encourage anybody who wants to come up here to the front well, we have some more questions. All right, so I didn't quite realize that the special ed approval has a shelf life of 3 years, if I understand, correct?
Yes. 3 fiscal years.
Subject change. I have a question for pre-K ESL endorsement. So if I know if we do the transitional bilingual, that they can teach ESL in K through 6. Can they also teach ESL in pre-K?
That is a good question.
They heard the question.
I believe that it is pre-K to 6.
In the presentation, we said pre-K to 6, but the website says K to 6. And so I'm a really lovely person. I'd really love to hire for a position.
Perfect.
So I'm really hoping for a good answer here.
Can you do me a favor and email me directly that question so that I can make sure, I'm going to verify that and I'll answer you directly so you have it in writing. Would that be okay?
And Kim, can you give us your email?
Yes, it's KKUHL@isbe.net. And that goes for any additional questions that may or may not we get to today. If you want to go ahead and email me, I'll put together an FAQ document. That way everybody has the same information.
And if you could send that to the IRC, we'll be happy to post that as part of the proceedings for this presentation.
Perfect.
All right. And I'm hoping for this young lady that your answer is a good one. Any other questions that people would like to ask? Oh, I guess the question is just to repeat again. Oh, where can people find information about the world language and you're talking about the seal of biliteracy? No. Oh, where can people find the temporary provisional license for world language? Where can that be found? And maybe you could send us a direct link within the FAQs, only because we do know that the ISBE website has been reconstructed and things are just a tad more difficult to find.
Yes, absolutely. I will send you guys a direct link as well. But if you're so happen to be perusing the website and can get through to the Educator Licensure page, under the requirements, you'll see approvals, and it'll be under the, I think it's approvals for teachers at all grade levels. So like if you're on the licensure webpage, you hit licensure, and of course, and I don't know if you guys are having this error too, but every once in a while you'll have an error screen that says file not found. Just refresh it and the screen will pop up. I think our website's having some issues, but essentially there's an approval page, and you can also search for short-term approvals for teachers at all grade levels, and you'll be able to find, it should directly link that. But yes, I will send a link out for that.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Oh, here, come on up.
Good afternoon. I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm hoping I'm wrong. So we have posted an EL resource position in our district back in the spring, have had no luck filling that position. We do have an individual who has been a sub for us, who is a retired EL teacher, who is currently serving on a sub certificate, not a Pell, a sub certificate. And he does have all of the qualifications to be able to serve in that role. Can he do so? And if so, for how long can he do that?
So he would be held to the substitute teaching requirements. And I'm gonna, while we're looking that up, I think it's 90 days if it's a sub license for any teacher under contract in a school year. And if you had the Pell, they could do it for 120. So I will include.
Is he limited to, because of the teacher of record situation, is he limited to 15 days in that role and then a day off? And
Well, is he a short-term sub or a substitute?
No, he is
There's
a sub.
Okay, so if he has a substitute license and not the short-term sub,
Yes.
the 15-day deal is for short-term subs.
Got it.
So yeah. So then he would be under just the stipulations. Yeah, he would be for, let's see here. Let me look. It would be in a single school district. He would be 90 school days for any one licensed teacher under contract in the same school year. And if he had a Pell, or anyone that has a Pell in a teaching area or an educator license with stipulations, can teach for 120 school days.
All right, any additional questions? I think I might have one. Again, to get either the ESL or the bilingual special ed approval, one of the requirements would be that you have an LBS 1, correct?
One of the options, yes.
That's one of the options. And then that means that those individuals can then help, say, students who have, that resource person could then help a student who has an IEP if that person has both the LBS and, say, the bilingual special ed approval, for example, correct?
That's a good question. That might be something we'd have to talk to special ed about. I think it gets real sticky when we start talking about IEPs. And we have to double check with them to make sure that they hold the proper, credentials, I guess, for assignability to participate in an IEP. So let me get back to you on that.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No. Somebody's coming.
Can you help clarify if a English ESL teacher needs to have an English endorsement, or is an ESL certificate sufficient? We've had controversy in our district over the years with administration turnover.
So you're talking about English language arts versus ESL?
Correct.
If they're teaching in an English as a second language setting, they would be ESL endorsement. English language arts is not considered part of that.
So we'd be within compliance if they have, for example, a science endorsement, but they're teaching ESL, because technically they're not receiving an English credit because it's ESL. Do I have that correctly?
So they're teaching science with an okay.
So we have a teacher, her background is ESL with a science endorsement. However, she's taught ESL English for many years. We've had admin turnover. One administration says you need to have an English endorsement in order to be able to do that. And the other new administration says that you do not need to have that. And the gray area was, I guess, whether that class was defined as being English or not. It's coded as an ESL class.
Then she should be fine.
She should be fine.
Yeah, she should be okay, because I don't think the English language arts, she's not teaching that specific content area. She's
Well,
teaching science,
No,
or she,
okay. What she should be teaching, if she's teaching English as a second language, she should be teaching them intensive English language arts. I mean, they're trying to, that's where everybody gets sticky. ESL is just teaching students who do not speak English. They're teaching them a very intensive English course, so they will become fluent and speak English. Bilingual, you're going to be teaching students in, for instance, that teacher in a science classroom, they will be teaching that science class in Spanish or whatever the bilingual language is. So they don't get behind the students who aren't in a bilingual class. Okay, do you,
Is it-
for English 1, English 2, English 3, or English
Yeah.
4?
It is not.
The question is a class for credit, and the answer here is it's
that
not.
I don't have a clue on. That's not, but what I'm saying is when an ESL course that you're teaching to students that are not from our country and do not speak English, you're teaching them intensive English, or that's what should be taught, so they can learn to speak English and they can get out of the bilingual classrooms within 3 years. That's what the ESL is for.
So if
But you are not required to have an English language arts endorsement to teach that.
for credit towards high school graduation, then they have that little
They- right.
If it's just an ESL class, in addition to that class, it's different.
Can't hear.
And they won't need it in that situation. Scenario 2.
They do need it if it's.
We're talking about the whole issue of credit.
Yeah, if it's
Yeah,
credit.
and we don't do that. So I don't have
Right.
any idea, and I'm not sure who you would even speak with on that. Do you?
I don't know if it'd be like the multilingual
It looks
department.
like you want to burst out of your chair. No. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Any other questions?
She shared her email address, because I think some of us might have very specific.
Okay, so if you could both share your emails again. So we heard, so Kim was KK, if you could repeat that again?
KKUHL@isb.net, and I'm gonna put it in chat. I don't know if you guys have chat pulled
Oh,
up.
here, oh, wait, hang on. I can pull that. Oh, here it is. I can pull that up. And then I know it's cberger, CBERGER at isb.net. Is that correct, Cindy?
Yep, that's correct. Sorry, I had my mic up on my head. Yes, that is correct.
So cberger@isb.net.
Correct.
Right, because people are saying that they have very, very specific questions, which I can understand.
Yeah, and I think it might be better if any questions are left unanswered. I'm trying to type them as much as possible, but I know the person asking the question might have more context. If you want to email us those questions, we're going to compile that document because I think that any of those questions could also pertain to another school district and they could have a similar situation. So we want to make sure that everybody has consistent information.
Thank you. Any other questions, or we'll wait for the FAQs and you should be prepared for a few questions also, ladies. So
Okay.
so thank you so much, Kimberly and Cindy. Thank you for this presentation.
You're welcome.
And thank you also for all the great questions here in the audience. So have a great afternoon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.